Most people think networking is about being extroverted, smiling more, talking more, being likable. Wrong. Some of the most powerful networks in the world are built by people who barely talk. Harvard students don't network the way you think. They don't meet people. They build systems. And that's why a 20-year-old with no experience can walk into a room and leave with connections that take you 10 years. I'm about to show you exactly how they do it. And by the end of this, you'll never approach networking the same way again. Chapter 1. The Proximity Advantage. You think networking is about effort. Wrong. It's about positioning. Average people chase connections. They send cold messages, attend random events, hope something clicks. That's inefficient. Harvard students don't chase people. They engineer proximity. Sociologist Mark Granovetter called this the strength of weak ties. Most opportunities don't come from close friends. They come from loose connections. But here's what you miss. Weak ties only work if they exist in the first place. Harvard students place themselves where weak ties multiply automatically. Clubs, case competitions, research labs, alumni dinners, not because they care about the activity, because they care about adjacency. You join a random club hoping to enjoy it. They join because the club president interned at Goldman Sachs. Different game, same room, completely different outcomes. There's a Stanford study showing that just being physically near high performers increases your own performance by up to 15%. Why? Because exposure rewires standards. You normalize excellence. Harvard students don't ask, what do I enjoy? They ask, who will I stand next to? That's the first system, environment over effort. Chapter 2, the signal game. Now you're in the room. Doesn't matter, most people still fail here. They talk too much, try too hard, sell themselves wrong again. Harvard students don't chase attention, they signal value. Economist Michael Spence introduced signaling theory. People don't evaluate you directly. They evaluate signals that imply competence. You say you're smart, useless. You casually mention you're working on a startup. Now that's a signal. Average people introduce themselves like resumes. Name, major job, boring, forgettable. Harvard students use what psychologists call identity hooks. Short, high-signal statements. I'm building a tool that helps students automate research. I just finished a project with a VC firm. Now the conversation flips. Instead of you chasing them, they get curious. Here's the part you miss. You don't need to be impressive. You need to be interesting. That's it. Curiosity is the gateway to connection. Neuroscience backs this. Dopamine spikes when people encounter novelty. You become memorable not by being better, but by being different. Most people blend in. They become background noise. Harvard students become patterns your brain wants to complete. But here's the problem, though. Even if you get attention, you still lose the relationship because you don't know how to convert it. Chapter 3, the follow-up system. You think networking happens in the conversation. Wrong. It happens after. Most people meet someone, feel good, and disappear. Dead connection. Harvard students run a follow-up system. Not motivation, system. Psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus discovered the forgetting curve. You forget most interactions within days. That includes people. If you don't reappear, you don't exist. So they do something simple. They create micro-touches, short follow-ups, specific references. Hey, enjoyed your take on AI regulation yesterday. Yeah, not generic, precise. Why? Because specificity signals attention. Attention signals respect. Respect builds trust. And trust is the currency of networks. But they don't stop there. They stack interactions. One message becomes two. Two becomes five. Not spam. Spacing. Just like spaced repetition in learning. Each interaction happens right before the relationship fades. Memory gets reinforced. Connection becomes durable. Average people rely on memory. Harvard students rely on systems. That's the difference. Hit subscribe before you forget this. Because most people hear this, agree, and do nothing. And that's why their network stays small. Chapter 4, the value asymmetry. Now you have the connection. Most people mess it up here. They ask for help too early. They take before they give. Wrong move. Harvard students understand something called reciprocity bias. Robert Cialdini proved this. When someone receives value, they feel a psychological need to return it. So Harvard students front-load value, but not the way you think. They don't send random articles. They don't say, let me know how I can help. Useless. They send targeted value, information that solves a specific problem. I saw your company is expanding in Southeast Asia. This report might help. Now you're not just another contact. You're useful. And usefulness scales. Here's the trick. You don't need power to provide value. You need awareness. Most people are too self-focused. They think, what can I get? Harvard students think, what do they need? Different question, different outcome. And here's the kicker. The more valuable you become, the less you need to ask. Opportunities come to you. But here's the problem, though. Even if you build connections, you still stay average. Because your network doesn't compound. Chapter 5. The Network Flywheel. This is where it gets unfair. Most people think networking is linear, one connection at a time. Slow. Harvard students build flywheels. One connection leads to 5. 5 leads to 20, exponentially. How? They connect people to each other, not just themselves. You meet person A. You meet person B, you introduce them. Now you're not just a node, you're a hub. Network theory shows that highly connected nodes gain disproportionate influence. You become central, and central nodes get access first. Jobs, deals, information, everything flows through them. Average people hoard contacts. Harvard students distribute connections. Because distribution creates gravity, people orbit value. And value is amplified when shared. This is why their networks explode. Not grow, explode. But here's the thing though. You can build all of this and still fail. Because there's one mistake that destroys everything. Chapter 6. The authenticity paradox. You've heard this before. Just be yourself. Wrong. But also not wrong. Here's the paradox. Harvard students are authentic, but strategically authentic. They reveal selectively. Psychologists call this self-disclosure calibration. Too closed, you seem cold. Too open, you seem desperate. The sweet spot? Gradual depth. You share just enough to create connection, but not enough to lose status. Most people overshare to bond. They dump everything. That kills mystery. And mystery drives interest. Think about it. The more predictable someone is, the less attention you give them. Harvard students maintain tension. They reveal in layers. Conversation becomes progression, not explosion. That's how relationships deepen, without losing respect. Now you know the system. Positioning, signaling, follow-up, value, flywheel, calibration. You can build a powerful network faster than you thought possible. But here's the problem. If your communication is weak, none of this works. You can meet the right people, say the wrong things, and lose everything. That's why I made this video breaking down exactly how elite performers communicate with precision and influence any conversation instantly. Watch it next. Because networking gets you in the room, but communication decides if you stay.